Welcome back, everybody. Here we are for the final match of the second week for the City League FAB Chaos versus Separatist Union. And today we have Giannis Kouris facing JS Laurin from the team Separatist Union. Here we still have not witnessed the Bravo star of the show from the FAB Chaos team, something to be expected from any competitive team right now. So, a quick reminder of the rules of this league. So, every team brings 5 players, every player has to play a different hero, and each hero is randomly assigned to an opposing player attached to a hero. So, each hero can only be played once, so that means that there is only one Bravo star of the show. So from the Separate Union side, they should be expecting a Bravo star of the show. So this should be something that Dorinthea Iron Song should be expecting to face. So Dorinthea, we haven't seen much of her ever since Everfirst came out. We've seen, there's always these traditionally great Dorinthea players, traditionally these really strong players who are always able to snatch a game or snatch a win because Dorinthea just requires such a great expertise to pull off sometimes, but she has been pushed out from these really stronger decks like Viserai and Bravo Star of the Show in the current constructed metagame. But still, she's always something to be expecting. She's always something to not sleep upon really because Dorinthea's ways of interaction is because she has this great deck building potential, so it's not easy to expect what kind of deck style you could be witnessing from Dorinthea. Bravo Star of the Show though still is probably one of the powerhouse of the current constructed metagame ever since Everfest came out. The reason being that cards like, apart from his effect that has been amazing and gives just such a great value on your 4 card turns, and it's not easy to push any hero really to the life total where you have to block each turn, and there are not many decks after Plunderan has been removed from the constructed scene. It's not easy to force players to block with cards from their hand, and that's probably why we've seen Bravo Star of the Show being this strong on the current metagame. So, Bravo, probably one of the cards that made him this really strong hero was how great interaction he had with Awakening. And even though it was a card that wasn't really popular in Old Team, it's a more aggressive oriented deck like Bravo Star of the Show really forced us, really showed us how good of a card Awakening is, and also the coming of Pulverize, this amazing 10 cost attack that came in Everfest, really gave Awakening these really juicy targets, these cards that could really put a hard stop on the tempo to any player and give it back to the Guardian player, to the player playing the Awakening. And that's probably one of the additional reasons and why Bravo Star of the Show has been this much dominating in the current metagame, because of he's good when he's ahead, he's good when he's behind, and that's something that not many decks have managed to pull off. But, we might soon see Bravo reaching the legendary Living Legend status, or we might see another way that probably might be a bit undercover right now to face a deck like Bravo Star of the Show. So honestly, back to Dorinthea Iron Song. She she has seen some love. I mean, The two-wheeled build got some really interesting cards in Everfest, but they mostly felt that they fit into an aggressive style deck like Kassain Bleeds or something. We haven't seen many dominant builds in Dorinthea, but definitely there is still options for Dorinthea to be playing with wielding axes rather than the traditional Dawnblade build. But that as well depends on what kind of matches you're expecting. Well, most of the time, Dorinthia loves to force the opponent to block with some cards in their hand, and the Dawnblade build has traditionally been a bit better to that. In the earlier stages, when Bravo Star of the Show first came out, Dorinthia was somewhat expected to be like a counter to the Bravo Star of the Show. I mean, because see, Bravo could potentially never likes to block, and Dorinthia would have just the time of her life if the opponent never blocks, because Dawnblade just ramps up this match. But the thing is that because Dorinthia struggles with just so many other matchups, it's probably the reason why we haven't seen her gain match popularity. So, Axe Dorinthia, Hatchet of Body and Hatchet of Mind. One of those kind of builds where we haven't seen much success with Dorinthia, but we do know that the build is there, the cards are there. It's just up to you if you manage to pull off these aggressive turns to force the Bravo player into the defensive position. So pretty typical from the Stavro player, Findle's Tunic for these cheap interactions with Crown of Seed and the additional pitching, Ironhide Legs, Crater Feast, and Winter's Whale and Rampart of the Ram's Head, something not as common that Bravo players can a lot of times swing between Rampart and the Stalagmite, a card that gives a hard stop to a lot of decks, but it looks like that here Giannis Kouris preferred to go with a more traditional Rampart line. So, and from the Dorinthia side, we have Arcanite Skullcap, pretty typical there. Bravefords, Bracers, a pretty powerhouse on the warrior class, really. It will be really hard to replace these strong arm pierce for the warrior class, apart from, let's say, the Bolt and OTK deck. Valiant Dynamo, one of those reasons to really gives value to the two weapons build, because through the entirety of the game it might give up to who knows 5, 6, even 7 points of armor, and that's something really strong from just a single piece of equipment from the Dorinthia side. So the another interesting choice probably no, it's Tunic. It's probably the way to go with Axis, and here we see an Outland Skirmisher with Hatchet of Body, and here it is. So that's probably what we are expecting from Dorinthia, and pretty much from any two weapons build. There might not be this many interesting effects, or there might not be this many, how can I say it, flashy effects, but probably the name of the game is something like consistency, because there are so many cards in the Dorinthia deck that on the two weapon fight warrior build deck that allows you to just keep up the pressure and do these most of the time like 5 point of attack turn 6 point of attack, and here we see a block, and there it is, the more typical traditional go again way we've seen from Dorinthia, the glint of Quicksilver, something that's pretty typical in Dorinthia and the Dawnblade build, but well, it's a great warrior card in any Dorinthia deck really, but it's not the first card to expect from a two weapons build when faced with, so it's pretty easier to fall for the reprise effect. And looks like we will see a non-attack push forward a cheap dominate effect, so just a blue one. I am expecting we will witness as well the push forward, the red push forward. So right now just a clean 4 attack from the Dorinthea side and a single copper being created from Outland Skirmisher, because Outland Skirmisher allows you to create a copper in the next attack you build. So we might see a card like Cassin played from Dorinthea, but it's something to be expected. No other cheesy ways to use copper most of the time. And here we see the pseudo Enlightened Strike from the Bravo Star of the Show deck. These really strong 3-cost red earth attack actions that even when everything else fails, you just manage to swing with a pretty clean 7. 2 cards attack for 7, which is probably again why Bravo Star of the Show has this much consistency throughout most of his turns, because even his weakest turns are something like 7 with 2 cards and set up arsenal, probably a pretty typical Bravo Star of the Show turn. So let's see what kind of take the Dorinthea player will take. I'm guessing Violent Dynamo most of the time will be a pretty easy block depending on the hand of the Dorinthea player, but it's pretty hard to miss on just a single go again that you require in order to trigger the effect of Violent Dynamo, and it's something probably that you want to do pretty much every turn to manage to attack with the left Hatchet of Body and then with Hatchet of Mind. Oh, and here we see a Fate for Sin being played. No, it looks like we'll see a block of just a hit and run, and after that, yeah, go to the defense reaction and block with Fate for Sin. So Fate for Sin from Dorinthea, it looks like she's pretty much really well equipped to face off a deck like Bravo Star of the Show. So let's see how Dorinthea will answer. And here we see an Enlightened Strike, so I'm guessing for 7 because there are no more cards left in her hand, no more Pete, so I'm guessing just a 7. It looks like she got jealous of the 7 attack turn. And Enlightened Strike, one of those really strong cards, and the reason we've seen it being played in so many different decks and archetypes, and even on a deck like Dorinthea where it purely wants to attack with their weapons, but when you don't have this great hand and you want to have these filler cards to just be like, okay, I can always, if I want, just skip a card, skip a turn and just block and swing for 7 and go next turn. It's a pretty great trade-off. Also, you can also do these cheesy things like give it go again or pretty much being used in a finisher, but I'm guessing that in a Dorinthea Iron Song deck, most of the time what you will witness with Enlightened Strike is put a card in the bottom and swing for 7. That's probably the most common use, unless Dorinthea is running things like Flock of the Featherwalkers or something like that. And it looks like we witnessed just a single block with Rampart and take 6 points of damage, and there it is. There is the terror of any mid-range deck, Awakening, with 10 life difference. So it smells like a Pulverize here, and the thing is, no, it looks like we've seen a Crippling Crush. Not all of the Bravo Star of the Show lists are managed to run Pulverize, but even though Crippling Crush might be probably an even better option, because Crippling Crush just forces sometimes to lose a turn, and when of course it's paired with the Bravo Star of the Show effect, it's amazing. So it looks like, yeah, we will see Crippling Crush swinging for 7 with virtually zero resources being spent in order to do that, and it looks like that the arsenal has managed to stay safe and 2 cards on in hand, and will witness an 11 Crippling Crush swing. So pretty hard spot, but it's not the end of the world, because we've used the Crippling Crush having dominate from card effects, but right now it's just an 11 without an effect. So pretty much it's pretty manageable to lose some cards in hand and keep the effect and the life total in check. So right now Dorinthea should really be thinking about a lot of things, because Bravo could block a bit better the last attack, or could have also used Crown of Seeds to dive away the card in his arsenal. So we could potentially see from Giannis Kouris' side a follow-up attack, either a second blink or maybe a pummel. It's not something unheard of to see a pummel on pretty much any Guardian, even if it hasn't been this much popular in Bravo Star of the Show. But still, the two cards in hand and one card in arsenal. Oh, and there it is. Oh my god. Oh my god, a pummel, a red pummel into crippling crush. So that's, oh my god, 15 points of damage, and it looks like, no, it looks like the Dorinthea player chose just to block with Violent Dynamo, and it takes the 15. Wow, a huge life swing, a devastating turn from the Bravo Star of the Show player, swinging for Crippling Crush, with discard two random cards and an additional one from Pummel. It's just huge, a huge tempo back to the Bravo Star of the Show player, and that's probably the reason we've seen that, how we probably witnessed how great Bravo is on stealing the tempo back into his favor, because right now Dorinthea had a life lead, she could still be pressing the Bravo, and there it is, crippling crash with Awakening, and suddenly the life totals are on the side of Bravo, and he has a full hand, the card in arsenal, and the Dorinthea is just left with a single card to play with, which is not something that warriors like to do, swinging with just a single card, because they could not be as efficient. So a blue driving blade being discarded, something that could be a great filler in the Dorinthea deck, but it looks like no, the Dorinthea player had nothing to go on with, so it looks like she just passed her turn back to Bravo Star of the Show, and right now we see a teacup from in Tunic, and from the Bravo side, Bravo really hasn't managed to hit any great Bravo effects yet, and it just shows of how strong this deck is right now. I mean, having this amazing, just playing the good generic cards like Crippling Crush of the Guardians and stuff like that. Oh, and there it is. And Oakenold, I'm guessing, fused. Yeah, yeah, that's correct. So it looks like we witnessed in red Autumn stats, and it's not like Frigid. So Oakenold, another disruptive piece. So even though Bravo Star of the Show never managed to pull off his Star of the Turn effect, he still has managed to pull off back-to-back really disruptive turns, and that shows just the great strength of the hero right now, because he has access to all these really disruptive, great attacks of Guardians with these huge disruptive effects. It just shows of how much pressure he's able to pull up with, and again, he hasn't managed to pull off his effect, because right now, if let's say on both of the last turns there could be a Bravo Star of the Show effect, we could potentially be witnessing the end of the game much closer, but is it really shines right now in the real. It looks like we've seen an unmovable being played from Arsenal in order to stop 9 of the Oakenold. So pretty great text from Dorinthea. That's something to be expected when you pretty much are sure you are facing a deck like Bravo Star of the Show. It looks like we will see just an Outland Skirmish being played with Hatchet of Body in order to swing for 5 Tunic not being used, potentially to bait another attack, or potentially to represent a reaction, or probably for the cycle as well, because Dorinthea might know right now that she could be staying on the defensive side, and also one of those key warrior cards from that probably it will be played in a deck like a defensive style that Dorinthea is hoping to accomplish in order to prevent these really aggressive and disruptive turns from Bravo side. Something like I'm not recalling the name. There is a single pitch warrior reaction that blocks for 6 with her Steel Blade Sand. Yeah. So and it's how important it is for Findle Spring Tunic to exist, because the one pitch might potentially mean that Steel Blade Sand might be played for just a 0 pitch. So it looks like the the players are still thinking. I mean, he has managed to partially block, so it looks like just 2 points of damage will leak, and that means that we're going to the end of the turn, and Dorinthea will choose to put his remaining card back in arsenal. So right now we see again no effect from Bravo Star of the Show, and just a pitch in order to play Channel Lake Frigid, something that gives pretty much a hard stop in the Dorinthea turn, into a Winter's Whale, one of those really strong attacks from the side. From this, probably one of the greatest weapons that Elemental Guardians will have access to pretty much for a long time. I mean, Winter's Whale having all these effects, swinging for 4 with just a single pitch, and having the potential threat of having an additional Frostbite to play with, just gives so much value to a single weapon attack. And here it is how strong it is, because even though the turn was pretty passive from the Bravo side, Channel Lake Frigid just buys you so much time to play with. So let's see what the Dorinthea player will choose to do. And also the thing with Tunic is that because Fiendal's Tunic is an instant, that is an activated ability, that means that even for that pitch from Fiendal's Spring Tunic pitch, Channel Lake Frigid will have to forces Dorinthea player to pay 1. So pretty much the Fiendal's Tunic third counter is virtually means netting 0 pitch. So a pretty clean attack from the Guardian side, but Dorinthea has probably not a great turn follow-up and is a bit, yeah, something to be expected, a bit stuck with all of these defense reactions from the Dorinthea side. But it looks like we will see a block with a sink below and cycle through in order to keep the pressure up and to keep having cards in his hand to potentially play with, or cycle off some red cards that there will be no way of using this turn during the turn where Channel Lake Frigid enter the battlefield. So back to the Dorinthea side. Dorinthea so far has managed to block the disruptive turns from Kouris pretty effectively, but let's see if she's managed to put up also the pressure required to keep doing so. So right now just a single Hatchet of Body for 2 points of damage, which is something that the Bravo player could easily answer with, but also always it depends to the kind of hand that he has, and he just chooses to take the 2 points of damage. It looks like that Bravo at the start of the shows, he likes his hand, he likes his arsenal, and even though it was a pretty clean pizza card in order to block with Rampart and Crown of Seeds, he still wanted to maintain his turn. And we are still at the start of the Bravo's turn, and we might finally see the first activation of Bravo Star of the Shows. Again, there has been some Bravo Star of the Shows lists that don't mainly focus on the effect of Bravo. They don't mainly focus on having a pretty widespread of the three elements, but most of the time that is not the case. Most Bravo decks that we have seen success with are running things like a bunch of elemental cards and ways to kill the opponent as fast as possible. And it looks like we've seen a flash being played into Crippling Crush again. Oh my. A Crippling Crush with Go again. That's interesting. So we right now witness a swing for 11. The second Crippling Crush of the match being played. That probably has to mean there is a hard block from the Dorinthea side. No, it's not easy to play defense reaction on the current spot, so it looks like he chooses to take the 2, and because of the go again from Flash, another form from the Winter's Veil. It looks like the Bravo star of the show really doesn't care about sacrificing the card in his arsenal in order to keep up the pressure, to keep up the tempo, and by pitching 2 ice cards, he managed to keep Channel Lake Freezed into play in order to further put a stop to Dorinthea's turns. So a pretty quick turn back to the Bravo side. Still, it looks like no effect from the Bravo side. We still haven't seen a single one, but the more the game goes on, the less happy Dorinthea should feel about that, because at some point when Bravo started the SotS effect will start kicking in after the deck has been cycled once, it could be so much easier to do. So just a clean autumn stats for 7, it looks like, by pitching a blink, so probably just missing a single element there, but still the pseudo enlightened strike turn of a red pitch earth attack. So it looks like we will see from the Dorinthia side a single card block and pitching a second one in order to placing below, and just how much value the Channel Lake Frigid has generated this game, forcing Dorinthia to pay for all of these defense reaction that she so desperately needs in order to be able to block the attacks of Bravo star of the show. So it looks like we are back in Dorinthia's turn. Finally, there is no Channel Lake Frigid left on the board, but right now Dorinthia just has only a single card in his hand, so just swing for 2 with Hatchet of Body, and it looks like again Bravo will have the option of block, and here it is, the pretty clean block of Crown of Seeds into Rampart of the Ram's Head to easily block the 2 points of damage. No, and it looks like we will see a Blade Runner being played from Arsenal in order to keep the pressure up. So a massive 5 for a virtual single card hand from the Dorinthia side. And that's probably the value of the 2 one-hand weapons build from the Warriors, having a turn with Tunic and a single Blade Runner, meaning that you could potentially threaten for something like 2 plus 6 for an 8 with a virtual, just a single card in arsenal, a single card in hand, and a pitch from the Findle Spring Tunic. Just adds up to so much value. So it looks like Bravo player took the hit. Honestly, Dorinthia has been quite impressive so far. She has really been able to put a hard stop to the Bravo's effect, but there it is. There it is, the Bravo star of the show effect, and a lot of blue cards being pitched, and the Spinal Crash. 3 blue cards being shown, so Dorinthia should not be really happy that there was actually a red attack, and Spinal Crash again is one of those cards that really puts a hard stop to any aggressive deck, because losing any way to gain go again is just so annoying when playing any aggressive deck right now. So it looks like we will witness a block for 4. Violent Dynamo right now, I'm keeping count, it's the 3rd time it has been used. So it has generated 3 armor already. So it looks like the Spinal Crash effect will go off, 4 points of damage will be blocked, and 7 will go through, giving again back the health lead into the Bravo player and forcing the Dorinthea player to just be able to play a single card in his or her turn. And here we see a push forward being played. Activate abilities and like I don't think, if I'm not mistaken, 7 points of damage have been dealt. So right now, yeah, that's a pretty big mistake from the Dorinthea side, because he could only play the push forward without being able to attack with Hatchet of Body, and that's a pretty strange mistake, because most of the time we are used that Spinal Crash does not allow attacks to gain go again, but Spinal Crash reads that any effect that you have that could potentially give have go again, it just does not allow you to gain the go again, does not allow you to gain the auction point back. So pretty tricky situation there, pretty much Dorinthea wasted the turn, but it couldn't be that much important because her other options would probably be to just swing with a Hatchet of Body for just 2 points of damage. So it looks like we will not witness a Bravo Star of the Show effect again, but just a Winter's Bite being played in order to force a card out of Dorinthea's hand. A yellow hit and run being pitched in order to pay for the Winter's Bite. And I'm guessing we might see again the Channel Lake Frigid. Oh god, Dorinthea must starting to feel really annoyed with that. Because even though Starvo never managed to have much of a tempo or trigger his activated effect enough times, the back-to-back Channel Lake Frigid just gives the Bravo player so much time in order to do the stuff he wants. So there is still a one floating, so this 0 cost 4 block defense reaction could still really be really valuable right now, because the Dorinthea doesn't have to sacrifice an additional card in order to block with them, but still, because Channel Lake Frigid, Dorinthea, especially Dorinthea that wants to play with 2 one-hand weapons, really doesn't like having to pay an additional one for every effect she wants to activate. And it looks like no, we haven't been to blockers yet. The Violent Dynamo right now doesn't have this really important 1 point of armor in order to fully prevent the Winter's Wail, but it also again depends on what kind of turn Dorinthea will have. It looks like we will see a double pitch in order to play there. It is, yeah, Steelblade Sant being played, one of those really strong cards in the warrior deck, dealing the tricky point of damage back to the Bravo Star of the Show player, but probably Dorinthea should not feel great about having to sacrifice a Steelblade Sant in order to prevent just a Winter's Wail attack from Bravo Star of the Show side, because it should be really valuable to prevent these really strong dominate attacks. So back to the Dorinthea player right now with just a single card in hand and a card in arsenal, and again we will see a pass turn, which is something to be expected while Channel Lake Frigid is on the battlefield. And there it is, Bravo Star of the Show. These legendary cards have starting to appear, making it so much more easier to be able to do your triple element fuse. And right now we will see even a blue electrify being played. So right now that means that a card has been drawn, potentially giving more resources to the Bravo player, and right now Bravo swings for 9 go again with Dominate, with the effect of Electrify being active. The point of damage is not that much important in Autumn stats, but still it should be annoying. So right now a pretty typical block of 3 with a blue driving blade from the Dorinthea side, preventing 3 out of those 9 points of damage, meaning that she will take 6 plus the 1 from Electrify. So it really depends though on how the Bravo Star of the Show will keep their pressure up, because right now what's to be expected is that Channel Lake Frigid will be off. Channel Lake Frigid will not probably have another turn in play, and just a single lake has been left in his deck. So Dorinthea, even though she is behind, she could potentially find the tools to do a pretty aggressive turn in against Bravo start of the show. So Bravo right now really wants to put the nail in the coffin and finish up the game. So a Pulse of Volthaven into Winter's Whale, something that we are not very much used to, but a quick reminder that Pulse of Volthaven gives your next Lightning, Ice or Elemental attack this turn +4, meaning that Winter's Whale is an attack getting +4. We've most of the time seen this card in a Lexi deck where Lexi cannot really attack with a weapon, so that's why we're not used to this interaction, but it can happen. Pulse of Volthaven can really do a massive Winter's Whale for 8. And again, probably we see a somewhat full block turn from the Dorinthea side, blocking, trying to stay away from these lethal range that Bravo Star of the show can represent. If you stay too low of a life total, pretty much any virtual dominate could be potentially game ending. So right now it looks like we will see a swing with just a hatchet of body, but again, if the card in Arsenal is something that can give you again to the Dorinthea, we could see again this really great value. Just 2 cards, 9 points of damage there, and I'm guessing that's what we witnessed. Yeah, exactly the same line. Blade Runner, this amazing card that just opened so much more space to these one-handed decks and to these really powerful and valuable turns. So right now, even if Dorinthea had almost blocked the whole of her hand, she still managed to pull off a pretty decent turn. So it looks like the remaining pits will be used in order for Bravo to keep his life total up. He really wants to be able to take the opportunity to use the Ironhide legs right now because he has the option to do so right now, because later he might not want to sacrifice a card in order to be able to pitch. So pretty valuable play there from Bravo start of the show. So back to Bravo's player turn, and it really, oh, there it is again, oh god. And this is it, the nail in the coffin most of the time, because again 3 blue cards though being shown from the Bravo side, and here we see an evergreen just for 7, so Dorinthea should be feeling a bit more relaxed, but these are really the value turns that the Bravo player pulls off, because even if he's a bit blue, he has a bit too many blue cards in his hand, swinging for 7 with Dominate and Go again, and another 4 with a Winter's Whale, potentially threatening Frostbite, is just such a great value, and probably again why Bravo Star of the Show has managed to be this much consistent deck we've witnessed of him being. So it looks like 3 points of damage are being blocked. That means that 4 points of damage will go through right now, unless Dorinthea has something else to block with or wants to block with something else as well. So it looks like no, the Dorinthea player will take the 4 down to just 3 points of life. And right now that means that, yeah, it makes sense from Dorinthea that she really wants to attempt to keep the, she really wants to have a turn. She really wants to force the Bravo player on the defensive just a bit. So if his life total gets a bit too low, and to be able to stop him from having these 4 cards hand that just have such a great chance of having the Bravo effect, because probably in the next time Bravo's effect will be activated unless Dorinthea has drawn one of her big red defense reaction. She could potentially be dead. So this game could potentially be over, but a 2-card hand from Dorinthea could potentially threaten up to 12 points of damage, so we might not be witnessing lethal, but unless Bravo Star of the Show doesn't have a great turn next turn, it might still come to the point where Dorinthea will get a following turn, and if Bravo falls into little of a life total, she will be able to punish him for doing so. So it looks like we just seen a value block of 2, And looks like, wow, a clean route being forced to play from the Dorinthea's hands. He really would have hoped that a card being played there, but looks like no, you will see just the route being played for a virtual 3 points of damage. He should not feel really happy about this. Most of the time, when route is played, most of the time you want the game to either be over or may get a huge life lead. But still, it was a pretty decent turn from the Dorinthea side. So right now it really depends on how strong of a turn Kouris will have. If the Bravo player manages to end the game, to do a pretty huge attack, Dorinthea could be forced into a corner. And here we see, wow, a Spinal Crust being pitched. That's interesting, with an additional resource being floated. So Winter's Whale pretty much telegraphing that he has a pummel that could also be a bait from, because a single pummel has been played, and both these players are to the caliber that they could. Both of these players know that what each else is thinking, and because Bravo has seen so many defense reactions from his side, he could potentially not be expecting an additional one. So it looks like no, we will see the pummel. Wow. So a pummel into a red steel blade sound, meaning 1 point of damage will be returned. So that's a great line from the Dorinthea side. A pretty clean block, and see, there is the light. I'm guessing there is the light in Dorinthea's mind. She managed to get the tempo back just a bit, having maintained a pretty threaty life total, and swing for playing a red hit and run to give go again to a hatchet of body. So 2 plus 3 into 5. So again, probably lethal isn't threatened with any card in Dorinthea's hand, but still it should not feel great. So a blizzard being played and being paid by Dorinthea in order to keep the go again up, and it looks like the 2 points of damage will. Kouris is still thinking about it. We've just seen so many defense reactions being played. Just 2 points of damage with Lightning Surge. Kouris right now really wants to keep his life total high. He doesn't want to lose too many resources to block. So we've seen the third counter in Tunic, the pretty really important counter, the third counter in Tunic, and the Winter's Whale attack again for 4. So the Dorinthea right now could potentially witness a pretty clean block with any red defense reaction right now. But really, that's the breathing air that Dorinthea really hoped for. So Bravo is only threatening 4 points of damage that could be easily be blocked with either a card from hand and Brave for Bracers, or with any red zero cost defense reaction. And she could potentially have the 4 card hand in order to play this poker game of reactions and non-attacks to force the Bravo player into starting to be forced to lose resources from his or her hand. So we are on the final round. We are getting close, I mean, to the final round, because this turn is really important, and we've seen a spill blood being blocked, used to be blocked. That means that Dorinthea should either be a bit pitch starved in order to use this great card to block. She could potentially have a second copy of it, or she could have so many expensive cards that she cannot manage to keep the pressure up. And it looks like no, an Enlightened Strike, so I'm guessing for 7 without go again, just the value play. So no, it looks like Dorinthea just wants to have another value turn. She didn't have the hand to keep the pressure up, and this again Kouris should just feel great about this, because if he has an aggressive enough hand, he could potentially just, do a value block with Crater Fist and Crown of Seeds to just keep a bit of higher life total unless something extreme happens. Because right now, Bravo Star of the Series has all the information he wants if he wants to end up the game, if his hand allows it. So there has been a card in Arsenal for some time now, so we could again potentially witness another red defense reaction being played. We've only seen, if I'm not mistaken, two Steelblade Suns and a single unmovable being played, so there are a lot of defense reactions left in Dorinthea's deck. And we are pretty close to the full cycle. There are 26 cards left in Dorinthia's deck, so we should be like 3 turns away from a full cycle. So it really depends on how many red defense reactions the Dorinthia player is running. We've witnessed 2 pummels from the Bravo Star of the Show side. We've witnessed 2 Crippling Crush being played and the single one being pitched, and if I'm not mistaken, 2 Okinolds being played. So there are still some gas in both of these players' deck, but really all of these red earth attacks from the Bravo side could really threaten to be somewhat lethal. So here we see a break ground being used to block just 2 points of damage. That's really interesting. So Bravo right now could either having all the cards he needs. So right now this is, oh, it looks like we've seen a 5 Guardian from Dorinthea, not a clean 7, so she could potentially threaten a bit of a more damage. So just 2 points of damage from the hatchet, being value block from Crater Fist, forcing some resources, and again Dorinthea still wants to claim as many resources as possible from the Brava side, and there it is, the Brava activation, something that has been calculated throughout his turn. And here we see the double legendary element, something that we haven't seen for a long time now during this game. And right now the next attack is Fudia and a second copy of Break Ground. That makes great sense why the other copy wasn't much required. So right now we see 9 dominate and go again, so we are at the point where if Dorinthea doesn't have a defense reaction, she could be dead. So 9 points of damage means that at least 5 have to be, no, at least 7 have to be blocked from the break round, and that red defense reaction means pretty much that if there is an unmovable or a steel blade stand, it has to be used, and it's not a great turn to do so. An unmovable could be a pretty clean block, but again, Dorinthea, if has an unmovable and has to sacrifice an additional card during her next turn to the next attack, to the Winter's Whale attack, she might not have a threatening turn, giving again the tempo back to the Bravo player. And there it is, yeah, another red unmovable being played, but no blue card from the Dorinthea side. A Cassin and the Spoils of War, and an unmovable being played to not even fully block. He still takes a single point of damage, and they're keeping the pressure up. Winter's Whale into 4, this annoying forward, and at this point Violent Dynamo again is not active, which has to be so devastating to the Dorinthea player, because even if a single point of damage leaks, I mean, having a single life total means that all of these odd attack number attacks means that it's just so harder for the Dorinthia player to block. So in the single card with a Frostbite pretty much means a full skip turn from Dorinthia, and it really comes to the point that if Bravo manages to find a threatening card in order to end this game, because that was the third red unmovable we've seen, and that's probably the last chance she has of blocking these great attacks. And I'm not sure, no, it looks like we are on Dorinthia's turn still. It looks like he managed, Bravo Star of the Show wanted to do a value Crown of Seeds in order to cycle through his hand in order to potentially find the third missing element, but it looks like no, we will see a Findle Spring Tunic, Teacup, and Bravo Star of the Show is not activated. And just a swing with Winter as well. Oh, this has to feel really bad from Dorinthea because she has expended many resources from her side. She has used a lot of small defense reactions. So, and we've only seen two pummels from Bravo Star of the Show side, so she knows that there could still be a third pummel left in Bravo Star of the Show deck, and because we are so deep in the game right now, there is a potential of him having. There is a pretty big chance of him having drawn it. So it also really depends on if Dorinthea has another defense reaction. She could really feel really relaxed to this attack if there is a pummel, but even the 4 points of damage, unless she wants to sacrifice Tunic, have to be weirdly blocked, because if you expect to, I'm not expecting she having many defense reactions yet, so if she gives the reactions and wants to block with just a single defense reaction, and Bravo Star of the Show actually has the pummel, that means that she she is no longer able to value block with cards in her hand without having the defense reaction keyword. So let's see what route will the Dorinthea player attempt to take to this attack. If she has a red Steelblade Sand, she should feel great about blocking this, but again it's, and the Findle Spring Tunic really has the one pitch, this single pitch point that gets just gives Dorinthia so much breathing air into having turns or blocking, or, and it looks like, yeah, there it is. We will see a red Steel Blaze sound being played from Tunic and dealing the single point of damage, and we will see a blink, wow, from that you into a knock and all. That's really strong line there. So it forces a lot of cards out of Dorinthia's hand. It forces her to remove a leave. She's left with just two cards in her hand, meaning that she can't potentially threaten too many damage. But right now, Bravo Star the Show does not have an arsenal yet, but he knows at least that there are no more defense reactions left in the Dorinthia side. So right now, Dorinthia starts to get into this point where she really loves being, because we've only seen two Red Blade Runners being played, and if this is the third Red Blade Runner, Bravo could potentially being pushed into a position where he has to start using cards from his hand to block, and that's exactly the place where the Dorinthia deck wants to have the Bravo player. So a red Blade Runner could potentially mean that there is an additional 2 plus 6 and 8.8 points of damage. That means that if Kouris does not want to use any of his any cards in his or her hand, that it looks like we'll see a blue Blade Runner. That he had to sacrifice Tunic, but a blue Blade Runner just makes it so much easier to block, because the second Hatchet of Mine just strings for 4. That means that 4 points of damage means that even if there are blue Steel Blade Suns left in Dorinthia's deck, it's not lethal from the Bravo side. But it gives an out from the Dorinthia side. She still has an out if Kouris goes to just 2 points of life, and again it really depends on what kind of turn Kouris will have, because right now there is no card in Arsenal, so there are no Steel Blade Sounds left, there are no unmovables left. That means that any dominate attack is game over. So it all comes down to these 4 points of attack, of how he wants to prevent them. The thing with Bravo is that There later in the game there are these weird hands where you don't have much disruption, or if you are a bit red stacked and don't have many blue cards in order to attack with your greater and bigger attacks, you might be a bit stuck with some weird hands. And really right now Bravo Star of the Show really doesn't want to give Dorinthea back her full card hand. The pretty important thing from this line from Dorinthea side is that the Blade Runner and the two attacks from Dorinthea side activated Valiant Dynamite. Right now, a swing with the Winter's Whale means that it can only be blocked with a single card. And no, it looks like Kouris will take the 2 points of damage. He will go to just 2 points of damage, and I'm guessing we do not have a Bravo Star of the Show effect, and 2 blue cards being pitched in order to play Spinal Crash, and that's pretty much a valuable turn. That because it just these value guardian attacks that just force 3 cards out of Dorinthia's hand most of the time, and that's a pretty great line from Kouris because on the next turn he will have the tunic, he will have the extra card in his or her hand, he will have the virtual 5 card hand, and Dorinthea right now there is almost no way for her to block this attack without sacrificing 3 cards. And that has to feel really, really, really bad from her side. And there it is, the 3 cards being used to fully block the Spinal Crash and our card being put into our arsenal. But right now we are at these strange life totals where Bravo Star of the Show has to use a card to block even Hatchet of Body. And that should really not feel great. But we could potentially see the Findle's Tunic into Crown of Seeds. So this Hatchet of Bad attack might mean nothing to the Bravo player, because right now Dorinthea has the chance of setting up a card in Arsenal, and if this card is a defense reaction card, she could potentially live through a blue dominate attack, and that's pretty important. So it looks like, yeah, we will see just the setup, Bravo Star of the Show being showed, Ice, Earth, Lighting, and if there is a greater attack, I don't think there is any way for the attack to be blocked. If it's just to break ground with Gurgen and the card in Arsenal is a defense reaction, the game could potentially go a bit on. But it looks like I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going on, but I think they could be discussing about what happens. So yeah, if the card in Arsenal from the Dorinthia side is not a defense reaction card, she could potentially live through this final turn. She could potentially live through this final turn, but at this point she is getting really close of having no more cards left in her deck that are able to go through or deal damage to her. So right now it looks like that I'm not sure what's going on, but at this stage also we've seen through most of Dorinthia's deck, and unless I missed something, I'm not sure she's running a blue Steelblade Sand, and that's probably one of her few outs if this game is to go on. Looks like no, it's a blade. Yeah, probably it's a red Blade Runner. Just shows her hand. Yeah, pretty much. Dorinthea right now never managed to have a turn. Dorinthea never managed to have these really aggressive turns, and she did a pretty great job facing probably one of the most aggressive decks and the most consistent decks in the current meta game. I mean, it was really close, and probably that's the way to go a bit. I mean, she managed to lock out and to prevent the disruption of some huge turn from the Bravo side. But even though it came really close to the point where the thing with Bravo is that he is always so consistent, and I mean, even if his way worst hands are still just so powerful, and that's probably the reason why we've seen him being so popular. I mean, and let's say again that this Dorinthea deck was specially has been crafted to face Bravo Star of the Show, and even though if the I mean, let me do a check again. Yeah, Laurin did an amazing job this game. I mean, the game got really close, and it's not like Bravos had a really bad hand. Bravo started the show, had an amazing hand. Giannis Kouris played a really aggressive game and had some really big disruptive turns, and still Lauren managed to get the game to this point. So just a few turns, if the few turns were a bit different, we could have seen a different outcome to the game. It got pretty important to the turn where the Spinal Crash effect was active, and the Dorinthea player just played the red non-attack action with no effect really. So she could have potentially missed some points of damage there, and that could mean right now that we could have seen a different life total and another card being forced from the Bravo side on some really important turns or forcing some blocks. But it, I think it got really close because of how well Lauren managed to play. And honestly, the reason why Bravo Star of the Show is so dominating and what we've seen with him being so strong in the current metagame means probably a bit that the Dorinthea player was on a bit of a disadvantage, and pretty much any character feels like he's at a bit of a disadvantage when faced with Bravo Star of the Show. So we had an amazing game, a pretty great game left for the final game. Again, FAB does it with a 3-2. We managed again to snatch a win of the second week, so which is pretty good, which will give us a great virtual pump up for the upcoming calling. So next week it's the calling in Krakow, so we might not be able to stream all of the games. We'll attempt to stream as many as possible and record them in YouTube. So thank you really much for being here. It's been a pleasure. It's been a great game. This is your host Saxo. If you like the content, please leave a follow and subscribe. And if you are looking for a podcast, if you want some more and want to listen to a podcast, there is Push the Point one from some really great guys that you can check out. And also, don't remember to have fun playing your local armors and stuff. So, see you around and have a great day.